All right, Zach, let's do this thing. It is Monday, May 3rd. Welcome, everyone, to Living Room Sports Talk. Kieran McCauley, Zach Rothenberger. Whew, it's been a minute, Zachy. It's been a minute since we've been on the old airwaves, eh?
Yeah, a lot's been going on. I mean, the group texts were blowing up on Thursday night with the NFL draft and some other things going on. So we got a lot to talk about.
At one point, I'm not just saying this in a brag. I had 300 texts at one point, just between two group chats. That's all it was at one point. I worked through all the other texts. I'm like, how do I still have over 300 texts? It was unbelievable. That's football, and I feel like we haven't done football chatter in a minute. You know what I mean? Like it's been. Not that I'm saying it's our bread and butter, but it kind of is a little bit. It's more like it's not your bread and butter, but when you go to an Italian restaurant, it's that chicken parmesan. That's it's.
Yeah, I had that for dinner tonight, actually.
Did you?
So, it was good. Mm-hmm.
All right, well, hopefully the news won't be good then, because that's where I'm at right now. Look, we always everyone fans are on the chat. This is a tough show for me, Zach.
There's a lot of drama and rumors flying around for your Packers.
Yeah. It's funny. Besides the Bucs loss, this was the hardest show I've ever had to put together from a notes perspective, because it's just like biting my hand the entire time, sipping on a Goose Island bourbon stout, trying to put the notes together. Mm-hmm. All right, this is my challenge today, Zach. We're gonna work through this, right? We got a lot for everyone. It's a Monday. We've been on hiatus I feel like we've been kind of on hiatus for 3 weeks. We've been doing a one show a week type of thing for a little bit. But we're back, right? So we'll talk obviously about the NFL draft this past weekend. We'll talk about the rest of the NFL drama as well. And I will be on a few soapboxes today. We'll talk a little bit about the MLB umpiring, Zach, by the way, which has been, questionable to say the least. And then we'll do Mojo Monday. Obviously, we'll talk about the Kentucky Derby. So we got all sorts of great stuff to chat, obviously, which we love. This will be a fun show, and I encourage all the folks to jump in the show. As you can see, my getup. This is going to be one for it's going to be relevant. I see, look, Uncle Ricky's already jumping in right about what about Aaron Rodgers in the chat. All right, real quick before we jump in, do we want? It's funny because I had pushed this to fourth in the lineup of segments, not because I don't know. I just felt like I was like, we'll talk draft. Chad's at the draft. All right, well, Chad's on the show, so we can already knock that segment out. But we'll just push the Aaron Rodgers stuff to the top, all right? Because God knows how long it's going to take. But before we do that, Zach, what do you say we get a little batting practice in with some clickbait? What do you say?
Yeah, I gotta lob up some softballs,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm bad. You want to go first?
No, yeah. So obviously, when the Giants traded with the Bears, there was a huge draft pick with Justin Fields, and everyone and their mother is saying how he's going to be, basically the second coming for the Bears. But long story short, it's ESPN. This was on ESPN Plus, I think it was. Or no, it wasn't. It was ESPN and Mel Kiper specifically. There was a little, they did a little verbal, piece saying, should Justin Fields start week 1 for the Bears? And regardless of if the answer is yes or no, it's literally May 3rd. We're just cracking the bottle open in May, and we're already talking about starting in week 1 when that's over 4 months away. So, I think we can come up with better content, ESPN, than just saying, should their quarterback they drafted with the 11th overall pick start week 1? I don't know. So it's just, yeah.
Well, no, it's fine. I'll just expand on that because it's funny because I feel like sometimes I dwell on clickbait. So I'll just tie in yours with mine because mine's the whole the NFL is grading every team and what they think. All of this in general is premature, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago. And this is what my axe to grinds with the NFL draft in general, right? And why I wasn't so horny to talk about it, if you will, on the show, was because to me, I'm just everyone's great. Everyone's starting week 1. Everyone's turning the team around. Everyone's a franchise player. And then, all of a sudden, week 3 might roll around in preseason where it's Justin Fields, he needs a year.
They're a rookie. They need to learn the system.
Right. And, dude, how much does this go back to what we were talking about with the whole idea of if you were that headline, for example? I'm not saying that Justin Fields not going to start, right? But let's just say hypothetically he doesn't. So that's a horrible headline, then. Right, it's just so it's it's literally just for right now, where it's the end of April, beginning of May, where God knows if he's even picking up the playbook, right? Like that. Like there's so many layers before you get to him starting week 1 from him being drafted that would have to check off. That something like such an article is such a waste. To your point, and to my point, with all the other and for every other person in the draft, right? Like yours is just one of the 31 other. There's 31 other ones, right? Where it's like, oh, he's a great first round draft pick. He's not. They're all, you have no idea. Nobody has any idea. And the funny thing is. No, I'm not. I was going to mention the Aaron Rodgers, like how everyone hated that pick. We're not going there. We'll go there in a minute. Well, in a moment, but I don't know. That's my little rant on it. But I mean, I feel like you would agree on that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you know what else really like grinds my gears during the NFL draft is every player that gets drafted, whether it's, and I respect all these guys, Daniel Jeremiah and all those analysts. They always have a professional comparison. Oh, professional comparison, Calvin Johnson. Oh, Santana Moss. And it's like, really? So you're going to Santana Moss or Calvin Johnson? Like, come on. Every player is so different. You can't just go base them off of their college tape and tell me they're going to be this next person or this is who they remind you of. Like, you're just setting the players up to fail when you do that, in my opinion.
You always got to love someone who runs routes like Randy Moss.
Yeah,
it's like,
dude, they were saying that about Jerry Jeudy. He's the next Julio Jones, where he runs better routes than Julio Jones last year. And, like, I mean, granted, he started to play better towards the end of his rookie season, but, like, I don't know about you, but that raised the bar of expectations for me. And then he turned out to be a dud with regards to that comparison. It just doesn't do the players any justice, in my opinion.
It's not fair, and I think if you're going to talk about, you talk about their potential, or their tendencies in their game,
or like their build,
right, exactly. Their potential, like their possibilities could be like this, like they mimic characteristics of that person when they were that age. Like that would be a better way of clarifying it.
Completely agree. Instead of saying, "Oh, he's the next," I compare him. He's going to be just like a Hall of Famer, whatever. It's just
like remember when everyone was saying Baker Mayfield was like the next Brett Favre or Tony Romo, where like he's a gunslinger. I'm like,
they can't just say that he like plays similar to him, like with the mentality of like the gunslinger. They can't just like say something. The expectation he's going to be that
right. And how many more athletic quarterbacks that are like on the shorter size are going to be like, oh, they're the next Russell Wilson? It's like,
well, did you hear him say about Zach Wilson? Oh, I see some Patrick Mahomes in him. Like, really? Come on, guys.
Oh, yeah. Well, I saw Jordan Love apparently in the scouting report last year.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it's a little too premature for this thing. Might as well rip the Band-Aid off.
And I'm like jumping in front of you. You're like saying like premature. I'm like talking about premature. I'm being premature right now. I'm like, just get it over with.
Rip it off.
Well, we got a couple viewers. They're probably not here just for nothing. They're probably. You can't just sit here in this chair with all the stuff in the background with a big old grin on your face and just like drooling over Aaron Rodgers, drooling over Matt LaFleur, like doing the whole getup, and then not be able to. And I'm not just doing this to pat myself on the back to give myself my own little like hype speech before I get in here and just take it on the chin here. But you can't go through all that and then not come on the show and like I said, take it right on the chin. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk about it. Do we just do it now? I mean, obviously, we're going to do it now. I guess I'll do this. I will give a slight opening remark because I'm going to say a lot of things, I'm sure. Then I'll pass it off to you for your opening remarks. Then I will actually give my like real opening remarks. But I would just start with this prefacing that I feel like no one knows that there's, if anything, it's almost like the as they said, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure so creates that like the whole like the thing is nothing, and then the dust in the wind, dude, like that whole thing, like joking around, being like the reality is that none of us know anything, and the fact is the reality is a lot of this stuff was going on before any of us checked Twitter on Thursday. So there's layers to having to understand that what's actually going on in the timeline is probably not jiving to what our social media timeline is, right? Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of stuff that's built up over the years. And I will add this, that I think anyone that knows the Packers and anyone that knows Aaron Rodgers, and not me, like me, like to that point, it's almost like me, and this goes back to the nothing part. I think anyone that actually really has their teeth sank into the situation knows the Packers don't really leak anything in the media. Like maybe sure a thing or two, but like you think about their big moves that they've made, like when Rodgers deal broke, right? Like all those things where people were like biting, like salivating at the bit. Aaron Jones, like, where's he going to go? Like, I was sitting here on the show saying he's gone. Like, you're not even hearing anything about him possibly re-signing with the Packers. He's out of here, right? Like, they keep everything airtight with what's actually going on in-house. And on the flip side, Aaron Rodgers doesn't mince words, right? Like, he doesn't go out there and leak things. And if he does, like, not saying he does, but if his camp were to leak such a thing, it's not without the bigger picture being involved, right? Anyone that knows him that's talking today on a talk show, they also know that, like, and I'm not, this sounds horrible. I'm not saying, oh, Aaron Rodgers will cut you out. But he trusts people, and people that he trusts and they trust him, they're not going to cross each other on a talk show, is basically my point, I guess, is where I'm trying to go with this. So you take the slow things for what it is, right? Like things like Mark Murphy coming out and having to talk about this, Matt LaFleur, like them actually acknowledging and speaking to it validates the situation, right? Like, so there's that. And then on the flip side, you see what Mike Tirico said with how you saw Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to go to camera. Like, he's obviously upset. I don't think he wanted this to get out. So, like, I'll kick it back to you with the point being of that there's so many layers to behavior to this that before I even start going on and on about all that, basically it's almost like keep in mind that this is not a simple, like, if you're looking for me to step up on the stage and be like, well, it's pretty simple. They drafted Jordan Love. He's pissed off. So they either trade Jordan Love or they move. Like no, it's not a simple answer. And I'll go on my soapbox in a little bit, but I'll kick it to you. See what you think as a football fan from the outside world. And, like, dude, not that I'm saying you should be smiling right now, but it's like if I was watching someone that had, like, basically the prince of, like, the best quarterback that the best player in football that I personally ever think played the game, I'd be almost laughing, like, Jesus, what are you doing up there, dude? Like, you're laughing, you're going 13-3, having a good old time, and what the hell are you doing? You can't get, like, I don't know. I'll turn it to you. I'm going to shut up now.
No, like someone from the outside who has no emotion really tied to the Packers, I don't know, man. I just find it extremely hard to believe that that's really how he feels. I understand he might be a little bit upset because he wasn't involved in certain decisions based on some personnel that he might have had connections to and wanting to have a little bit more of a say in who stays, who goes, and things like that. I get it. But, like, at the end of the day, they've gone to 2 NFC Championship games in a row. There really is no better place for him to be in the NFL right now than with the Green Bay Packers. So, at the end of the day, I mean, and I said this in our text earlier, I think Rodgers has, like, a thing for making things kind of dramatic with some things he says. It's not a bad thing, you know. It's what makes him who he is, which is great. And he builds, like, a storyline up, and then he delivers, and it's like, wow, see, told you so, you know. So I feel like this might be his one of his ways of, like, somehow something leaking through whatever source, and it's meant to be put the spin on, oh, wow, there's a dark cloud over Green Bay. I don't know. He's not really happy there. And then all of a sudden this year he's going to take them deep again, and they're going to go, you know, what's the 14-3. Now there's it's a 17-game season, but I don't know. For me, I wouldn't be worried about it, to be honest. I know it sucks, but, like, I don't know. Something about it just, I'm not taking it super seriously. I'm not.
Well, there's a few, like, and the thing is, you ever watch 24? Did we talk about this on the show? I feel like I asked you this on the show a couple weeks ago. That's how long
I didn't follow it, but I know what analogy you're
doing. Do it, though. It's a great show. But I've been binging on it. Me and my dad have been watching it and, like, been texting each other about it. And you can't help it when you're binging on a show like that. Like, the whole thing is them, right, like, picking up on, like, little traits that the terrorists are doing, right? Like, they're basically picking up on little details of human behavior and also being real with the situation, being like, this is important. Like, really, and I'm not trying to base my whole behavior off of the TV show, but I think when you roll this back, it's funny. I wrote this in 3 columns in my notes because, like, it's funny because I actually thought about just writing one bullet point and being like, no notes needed. Just be like, I can just speak from the heart. But I'm like, there's so many layers, like I said, so you might as well just start peeling it back. And to your point about, like, the flair for the dramatic and kind of basically everything to your point, let's almost look at this as like a murder, right? And we break this whole thing down. How much of this actually adds up to what the media is saying? First of all, the media is like the character in the movie where it's like, oh, they've already been convicted and, like, served time in prison for murder, right? So it's like, okay, so they've done it before. Like, and that's the media. Like, oh, they've lied before? Like, how about that, right? So that's the first layer. The second layer is, and let me actually stop real quick. I think there's, like, I actually was going to, I don't want to cut you off. When you're saying I really wouldn't be worried about, I'm terrified about this. This is, Zach, this is real. Like, there's something not good about this. Now, Grant, I don't know what it is to what degree, and that's at least what I would like to openly say that I think is great about our podcast. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how what the odds are he's coming back? I have no idea. To me, right, like there's, and I'll go down the paths that we can go down that I think are that's what I think is not like saying that's what's so great about our show. But like we might as well talk about like what could happen and the branch offs of those situations than sit here and be like, Zach, what are the odds he comes back next year? You have no idea. I have no idea. I don't even think he has any. I don't think anyone knows that. It's April, March, or sorry, I guess it's May 3rd. It's May football. So, sorry, as I reel it out. So, look, there's sport possibilities. Number one, you do the last dance thing, right? Where everyone comes together and be like, this is not great. Let's just bygones be bygones. You hate us, we hate you, but like we kind of need each other to like work through this. So, one more year. What do you say, right? Okay. Then you extend him. Right, you say, okay, look, here's the check, here's the keys, it's yours. Go ahead, go for it. Number 3, trade him. And right, like, I don't see how you really do that at this point in time, but I'll get to that in a second. But then number 4 is he retires and does the whole Jeopardy route. So let me backtrack it, and I'm just going to knock that one right out. I was going back, remember, Zach, I was saying, like, you take the things that are real, like the people, like he's boys with AJ Hawk. They went to the Kentucky Derby together. The fact that he's saying there's a 0% chance he retires, to me, means everything. He's not going to walk off and go play Jeopardy because that like lets the Packers win in a sense, especially if you're on like that camp, right? Like he's not retiring. So then it comes back to, okay, so let's like actually get in the inside the ropes, if you will, for boxing purposes, right? Like we're in the ring, we're in the octagon for we'll talk about MMA, by the way, a little bit later. But if we get actually inside the nitty gritty, he's still playing. Okay, well the Packers have all the control then with his contract. So sure, he might not show up. But then there's like the layers of like, I don't think he's doing that. So really, I think it comes down to this. He does one last dance where he's like, look, I hate this place. I'm out of here. But for all you guys, like, this was like my warning shot. They didn't do what I wanted. We'll all do one more dance together and then we're all out of here. And that might be it. Right?
How many years does he have left on his contract?
So I want to say I thought it was 4. I know next year is basically his big last guaranteed money year. So for all intents and purposes, it's kind of like next year's his last year unless something changes. So like on his end,
coming season or the following.
What's that?
This season or not? Are you
yeah? So he came back this year. He would have a lot. Yeah. So and to that point, you're a poker guy. I'm almost going to go get sidetracked here for a second before I start talking about like all the outcomes and the branches off, but. That's where I kind of, if you want my opinion for a second, that's where I kind of keep hanging on to this. If I look at this thing from an investigation standpoint, his stock's never going to be higher at 37 years old. He just won MVP, right? Like he's got the world. Like we just moved to back-to-back NFC Championship games. Grant, albeit because of our entire roster, he's a huge part of that. But there were other pieces. And my point is, this is the time. If you want to force the Packers, because what I really think is the Packers are just kind of dragging their feet, just like it's almost like if someone's dragging, like they're like, I'm going, but they're not. Like they're trying to really like let him play his contract out, and then hopefully Jordan Love can just jump in and go, right? Like I think for Rodgers though, it's not. I think it's a lot of things. I think this is an atomic bomb. I think it's he, and like I said, this is me just hypothesizing, but I think he wants say. Right, like I don't know. I don't have any insight into how much say he's had before, or like will have, or whatever. But certainly, I think, and even all of us, the fans are kind of like, you're not doing him any favors by making this move or making that move. I think he wants more say, and I'm not even saying final say. I told to my one buddy today, Zach. I was saying I don't think he wants final say in personnel. I think he just wants a say. I think he wants to be in the room chiming in. I don't think that's going on. I could be wrong, but so I think there's that, and then I think. And that's why, like, you're seeing the Jake Kumaro thing and this and that. I'll almost like pull up some of the tweets that you're seeing today. I don't know. Like, it's all about respect. It's all about respect. I don't know, dude. I don't know how you repair it. Yeah,
it's so weird to me. Like, they're one of the best teams in the NFL since he's been the quarterback for them. You know, and like I said, 2 NFC Championship games in a row. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand. I really don't. Like, I understand Rodgers wanting to have more say. I get it, but like, you're right there on the cusp. Like, is it really worth all this backlash that's going on right now?
Well, and that's the question, right? Like, do you want to have? And the chat's agreeing with us to the same thing, right? Like, they're saying like it's about respect, and I do agree with that. I just think, to your point though, Zach, I bite my hand. I'll actually be non-biased for a second. it's the most interesting thing because we could sit here and be like, oh, he's going to go the Tom Brady route. No, Tom Brady picked the best. He had the best situation of all time present himself, where a team needed everything but a quarterback. Or sorry, vice versa. They only needed a quarterback.
He took the LeBron route.
Right, exactly. Like that defense was stacked. Like he had 3 interceptions in the NFC Championship game. Like, come on, and our defense sucked. So anyway, my point being, if Rodgers goes somewhere where it's not par. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, we need you to kind of be the guy who makes personnel decisions and do all this. Then we'll see. But I mean, not like then we'll see. But I just mean like, I think we would see how hard it would be. But to circle back to what your point is, that's why I don't think he's going to go anywhere. I mean, but I think
stupid to go somewhere.
You know, it's funny. And I'm not just saying this like pat myself in the back, Zach. I would do anything to get in the room with both of them. Be like, listen, Brian, like, you got to understand, he earned more than just the average player. Like, seriously, you owe him that. And, like, you screwed him over with the Jordan Love thing. You didn't consult him at all. I get you were trying to get wide receivers in that draft, but you got, like, something had to give in that situation. And your job is to play football, and you do a great job at that. Give him security because he's better than what you're giving him right now. And you just go play football? Like, damn it. Like, this only could work out. Like, everyone loves you. We want you to stay. We have a Super Bowl possible roster. Like, that's all. But at the same point, and the thing is, I love how this is my last remark, and then I'll shut up for a second. But I love how the same people that will tweet out, anyone that's comparing this to someone who works a 9-to-5 job is so clueless, right? Like, there'll be that person, but then there'll be the same person that tweets out, you just don't understand. You think these people are robots. They're human, too. I'm like, well, we're all human. That's the whole point of the 9-to-5 point for people. On the other hand, like, it's all makes sense. I don't know. So, to that point, I think much like the 9-to-5 point, you're not going to go take another job at somewhere that is not better, and that's your point. But on the flip side, you want to feel so respected. So I don't know, dude. It's fine. I always feel like I'm making no sense with any of my points tonight. I'm just like rambling on.
No, I mean, a conversation needs to happen. That's for sure. Like it's just, yeah, the conversation needs to happen. I think he needs to have a little bit more. He wants to be heard, is what it is. He doesn't want to be held down. That's all. That's what it seems. I don't know. But like I said, he'd be stupid to want to go somewhere else because what's he going to do? Go to the dumpster fire that is the Texans and have the whole team basically say, here, you can run our team, Aaron Rodgers, but then they're going to go, 6-11 or something like, I don't know.
And dude, I'll add in there. It's not even just that. It's like you're going to go now and you're going to have to find a whole way to gel with a whole new playbook. Right, you're gonna have to go to a whole new like. There's so many layers, and if you want to go for it, go for it. Like he might bet on himself and say, "Go for it." I don't know. To me, if that was actually the route in general, and we talked about this when I sent you like somewhere between 9 and 3 trillion texts, whatever. See, my numbers aren't off, but anyway, I feel like if that was actually going to happen, the bonanza of return would have been pre-draft, not post-draft.
Exactly.
There's no way you're just going to trade. Like, yeah, we have no plan. Let's do it, right? Like, so I think this is more of like we got to get everyone in the room. And dude, how many times we talk about? And I have this in my notes too. It's like how many times we talk about Russell Wilson going to get traded? We're like, dude, this might go down. It's like
and look what happened.
And that had more substance of he would rather play for the Saints, the Bears. Like, wasn't there like a list of teams that actually came out? This is just people being like, well, we can play for the Broncos, the Raiders, or the 49ers because like those are West teams and like they kind of need a quarterback. It's like, okay, but money, collateral, like there's so many different things that go into that.
Yeah. No, exactly. Yeah. I mean, the Packers are in the driver's seat in that division too. So it's, I don't know. I keep going back to my normal point that it would be stupid to go to a company that has less of a good, less of a pedigree, winning pedigree, culture and all that stuff. I just think it would be stupid.
Well, and right, there's more, and we talked about this. There's like something about it that smells bad when it drops 5 hours before the draft. You know what I mean?
It was very odd timing. Like I wouldn't be surprised if this is some sort of like fake news that even Rodgers and maybe even the Packers leaked out. Like maybe this is like a total mind, a little just an epic, mind twist, and maybe Aaron Rodgers, maybe it's a conspiracy. Maybe it's Rodgers and the Packers front office saying, "Hey, let's throw this out just to really mess with them and think and put this in their brain." Well,
so I hope. And I could be wrong. I thought Peter Schrager had a really good point on Good Morning Football. I'm almost going to take what you're saying and spin it back off of what he was saying today. And I thought he was saying, to your point, I don't think Rodgers wanted to get this out. Like, me, I love him. like he's our quarterback. He's my hero. And everyone in Green Bay feels the same way. Like, obviously, anyone and everyone knows that, right? And he loves Green Bay. Like, he didn't want this to get out this time. There's no way. He did not want a camera in his face with the crew at the Kentucky Derby, if you want my honest opinion. And you sure as hell could believe the Packers, and that was what I was talking about earlier, right? Like, they don't let things get out.
Right.
That was kind of the whole point I was making earlier in the show. Is I don't think either one of these guys wanted to get out. And I thought Schrager had a great point on Good Morning Football, saying, like, maybe that's the olive branch, right? Like, maybe that's where you come together. You're like, dude, I don't know who knocked that out, like, who released that into the media, but can we, like, both stop looking bad for a minute and, like, work through this, damn it? Because, like, we have too much good on our side to make this bad overshadow. Because it's amazing. Remember that thing we were talking about where it's like the teacher did the math equation with the multiplication table, and, like, they did the first one was wrong, but the rest of them were all right, and the whole class was, like, making fun of them for getting the one wrong, and she said that's the whole point. Like, you always remember the one thing you got wrong instead of the 9 things you got right. And, like, that's what I would tell Rodgers and the Packers. I'd be like, everyone's going to remember how this ended. That's all they care about. Remember Brett Favre? You almost forget what he did for the Packers because everyone says, remember you really wanted to leave the Aaron Rodgers thing? Like, So that's my saving grace. And to add to that, Zach, I want your opinion on this. You know what? I'll almost just say it. I'm not even going to give you, like, a multiple choice. Who's Batman that can save this moment? If you, like, literally had to, like, just for fun and do, like, a fictitious, like, we're BSing around on a podcast type thing, but, like, if there's one guy where, like, he could probably fix all this, who is it?
To make amends with everybody? Oh, to me, I think it's Devontae Adams.
Oh, God, no, that's actually not who I had. But because that's actually a perfect segue. Did you see what he was saying today? Let's talk about that. I'm gonna almost bookmark what I was gonna ask you. I almost said the answer, but dude, I don't like what he was putting on social media today.
I did see the tweet. Yeah, it's like
kind of an Instagram post,
a little cryptic, or Instagram, whatever. Yeah,
there's both. I mean, you're the Instagram man. I saw the tweet, and I did not. Well, and I saw a picture of the Instagram post on Twitter, but. You know, let me actually, this is perfect. We're going to tie this all together so we don't do like a million rants. So, 2 things here. Who's going to fix this? And, like, because this is a mess right now. Like, maybe I'll even just add my little caveat. I don't think that's anything because I really think Devontae is a man that, like, is not going to speak when something's really that bad. I told you this before when we were chatting. I was just like, and I know, dude, I'm probably sitting here just being like, we're fine. Like, I'm the kid. I'm like Jimmy in Bridge and Tunnel right now, where I'm like, oh yeah, me and I forgot the name of the girl, Tammy, I think, or one of them. I forgot. Like they're dating, and I don't know. But I know I'm biased. Is basically what I'm trying to get at. I'm scared, so I'm obviously trying to cater this. But my point being is, I just don't think he would open up and like kind of goof off with all. Not goofing off, but I just don't think he would say all these things if it wasn't real. And to that point. If Rodgers was going anywhere, that's when you say, like, didn't rely. I don't know. That's my point. I don't know if you want to add anything though on any of that. Well, like, what would you think, Zach? If this is the Giants, like seriously, that's what I should ask you this question. I'm like, Zach, what do you think? What do you think? This is the Giants, Zach. Like your life is on the line. Like,
well, I kind of did live it a little bit with Eli a little bit, but that was more like more people saw that coming than like we weren't coming off an NFC or an NFC Championship game 2 years in a row.
Right, that roster needed help, and his game was starting to deteriorate. So, like, I'm not trying to put him and be like, oh, it's different. But, like, to that point, what if his game is still, like, he won an MVP, and your roster was looking better, and you're like, yeah, oh, my Christ. Like that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, of course, it would, because you're riding high, then all of a sudden there's, like, a rumor that you could possibly, have the rug taken out from under you. Yeah, I know. I get it, for sure. I mean, from an outsider, I just don't see how anything would happen. I really don't. But...
So the answer, by the way, to the question was Matt LaFleur. That was sorry.
Yeah, you know what? I did think about that after like a minute went by. I was like, well, Matt LaFleur, they seem to have a good relationship, but
and I think he's got a great relationship with Brian Gutekunst, the GM, and I also don't buy into. I think what AJ Hawk said is 100% spot on McAfee's podcast today, saying that he didn't believe in any of the whole thing with like he's not going to come back if Brian Gutekunst's back, right? Like they don't interact that much. So, right, like this has been a lot of things. Like Alex Van Pelt was a quarterback coach he loved. They moved on from him. He wanted Jake Cooper. They moved on. There's been so many moves where it's just like, I honestly, dude, I feel like he's getting the corporate treatment. We're like, yeah, Aaron, you got a highly valued plus again. We really appreciate it, but we're gonna do what we need to do here. And sometimes what they need to do is right. So that's where the juggling act starts.
It could be just a bunch of egos, it could be one of those deals where, Rodgers is great because of who he is, and everyone there, front office and Rodgers, has an ego, right? And I think the front office is kind of like the situation where we're the front office, we make these decisions, so we're gonna show our authority by doing this,
right? And I think the one thing I was saying to you this weekend too to add in there is look at Kyle Shanahan's quote on the Rich Eisen show today, right? Like he said, I didn't want to wake up on Friday and see that Aaron Rodgers was traded, and I didn't and not do my due diligence, right? So I called Matt LaFleur. He said I'd be wasting my time. And I actually heard him and his tone talking about it, to kind of elaborate a little more, just to make sure I had the context correct. And he basically was saying it'd be nowhere different than talking hey, did you try signing to Carrie Underwood's DMs? It'd be it's a waste of time. That's kind of the tone. I feel like that's been the general tone about everyone around the league, but the Packers, right? It's but Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. I'm you need someone else to take him, and no one everyone else is I would love nothing more than to make something up and give you this, but it's not there. So I think that's why every journalist I don't know. That's, dude, I didn't look. I'm we've talked about this for 3/4 of the show. I told you I was going to go on a rant, dude. It's bad.
Hey, it's a big topic.
It's something. Do you want to talk about the draft though?
Yeah. Long story short, I feel for you 100%, but as an outsider, I feel I just have I don't see how it could happen. How anything could happen here.
That's the most horrifying thing, right?
Mm. if you were in my situation, with Eli, everyone saw that coming, So, but this, there's I don't know. It'd be so bizarre if something happens.
No, I totally agree. I think it's just, I just don't think it all adds up, except for this is more of a bluff on the poker table.
Mm. Yeah, I agree.
All right, but I'll tell you. Let's spin real quick. So, talk about the draft. We didn't really do any draft preview, so and we talked about this. We're not going to do a draft preview because it might as well make more sense just talking about it after the fact. All right, so Trevor Lawrence goes 1. We knew all that was going to happen. Pulling up the rest of them real quick. I know I love what the chat said too. If we just had a crystal ball with the Aaron Rodgers thing, right? But looking at this, anything jump? I'll almost let you just take it from the floor, but if you need a little railing to talk about something, anything in the top 10 surprise you, but just general thoughts on the draft too.
I didn't think this draft class was super deep. I thought last year the draft class was 3 rounds deep, of solid talent. Whereas this year I thought it literally wasn't even 2 full rounds in my opinion. But what do I know? But one thing I think it was a record. The first 7 picks were all offense. And I don't think that ever happened before. I think it was 6, and then this year there were 7 straight offensive picks to start the draft, which was apparently a record, I guess.
Yeah, I wonder so much is some of that COVID, right? Because I feel we don't watch so much college football. But I love that Joe Pockets commented in the chat. That's great. Oh my God! Hey, you know what, Joe? It makes you feel better that whatever you pocket chatted us makes a hell of a lot more sense of what's going on in the Aaron Rodgers situation. So,
yeah, no, there were some interesting things Jacksonville taking Lawrence number 1 overall was just straight chalk, obviously. But when they got Travis Etienne, that was mind-boggling to me because they have James Robinson already, and it's because this whole reuniting theme of the draft has gotten really old to me. You can't just tell me they drafted their running back because they wanted to reunite him with Trevor Lawrence. Grow up. Why would you take Trevor? I don't understand why you take Etienne when that team needs a lot more than running back help, especially after James Robinson, what he did last year.
Well, it's funny you say that because I actually had all these little oh, he's reuniting with him. He's reuniting with him. And I'm just
it's so played.
And as I was writing it, I was just who cares?
I get it. The chemistry is already there. They don't have to work as hard, as hard to build that trust and everything. But come on. I don't know.
No, I agree. And I mean, it's funny because I'm thinking about how to ask you this next question because it's quarterback related. It's I could ask you is Trevor Lawrence dude? I don't want to be the guy that's doing what we were just talking about on my clickbait, saying we're talking about this guy going to go to that guy. The reality is none of us are going to know until the ball's going to be snapped. But I think you can talk about direction, right? And you just nailed a good point. Like, do they really need a running back? I mean, what do you think? I'll ask this question instead of being like, do you think Trevor Lawrence is going to be good? What do you think about Trevor Lawrence's supporting cast around him, right? Like his offensive line, his weapons around him. Like, how good do you feel about the Jaguars going into next year with everything? Like, do you feel way more confident in how they showed out last year? Less like where are you at with all that?
I don't know. I think they could be around a 500 team. They're not winning the division. I mean, you still have the Colts and the Titans to deal with. I mean, the Texans are obviously just on a downward spiral, so they're irrelevant. But you still got the Colts and the Titans to deal with. So no, I could see them being maybe close to 500, like maybe a 7-10. Like, I'm trying to get used to this whole 17 game nonsense, but
I hate it.
7-10, 8-9, 6-11. That's probably what they're going to be, in my opinion. I mean, we've seen it's not that easy for a very good college coach to come to the NFL and just all of a sudden produce results. We saw Steve Spurrier struggle. We saw Nick Saban struggle. We've seen numerous amounts of college head coaches struggle in the NFL, and they go right back to college. So just because Urban Meyer's there too doesn't mean they're going to be anything great either.
Well, and that almost brings back to the question. There's what, 5 quarterbacks drafted in the first round. I'm not gonna be like, who's the best one?
Jeez.
But
yeah,
I know I hate that whole thing. But
Can we talk about Trey Lance getting drafted 3rd, by the way?
Yeah, yes. Dude, yeah. Like, I love how you asked me that question, because I was about to say, what do you think of San Fran, a Super Bowl possible contender, going after Trey Lance? About the way you say, like, with the little snark, if you will, and I love that, though. Like, tell me more, Zachary. Like, oh my God, yes.
He only played in 11 collegiate games, and they're drafting him 3rd overall.
Serious? I actually did not know that.
Yeah, like I'm 95% certain. I heard that when they were doing the draft, that he's only played in 11 collegiate games, and 3rd overall.
The reason why I was asking is because I kept hearing, Zach, did you ever hear he never lost a high school game, or he never lost a game since high school? And I'm like, well, that's pretty impressive. How many? I thought he played like easily like a couple of years of college ball. No, it was 11 games.
Yeah, I'm fact checking myself right now.
And while you're doing that, to the chat's point, they were asking why 17 games. So they actually are expanding and adding an extra game on the NFL schedule this year. So it'll be 17 instead of 16. But speaking of 17, 16, and all sorts of low numbers, how many games, Alexa, how many games did Trey Lance start in college?
Here's something I found on the web. According to jockviewer.com, despite a sore knee and hamstring, Lance appeared in a team best 158 games.
That can't be real. I heard 150.
I got it. It's less than 20. I just tried adding it up. It's like 18 or 19.
So the 158 that Alexa just told me was not correct?
Yeah, that's incorrect.
Man,
so the long story short, he doesn't have a lot of a lot of reps. In Division I AA football is still top rank as far as college football is concerned. But I don't know. I mean, if he's going to go to any team, like, he hit the jackpot by going to San Fran because of their defense and because of their supporting players. They have, and they also. I don't know if you're following the Giants group chat. I was high on Trey Sermon. I would have loved to take Trey Sermon to be like a backup to Barkley, but the Niners got Trey Sermon, I think, in the 3rd round. Aaron Banks, an offensive lineman from Notre Dame. So, like, they did well in the rest of the draft, in my opinion. And he's got, obviously, George Kittle and other players around him. So he does have a good situation there. But I don't know, realistically, if he starts week 1, to be honest with you.
Well, and what's fine with that, take the bait and go Giants chatter here for a second. I want to do a full segment on that, not ask you one question. We're going to go full send on that in a second. But real quick, looking at some of the other first-round picks, like on Thursday, was there anyone that like popped out at you? Like, I'm looking, in the mid-range ones, like Mac Jones obviously was like an exciting pick for the Patriots. I know the Cowboys were excited, and Micah Parsons, it sounded like wanted to go to the Cowboys, right? Like what are your thoughts just in general on some of the first-round picks?
I thought Micah Parsons to Dallas I think that's going to be scary for everyone in the NFC East, to be honest with you. I really do, because if you Dallas always lands these linebackers right out of the draft that, Sean Connor for years and Sean Lee, or not, is it Sean Connor? Yeah, I think so. That was his name. Anyway, Sean Lee, Vander Esch.
Sean Lee and Dan Connor.
Dan Connor, there you go.
Yeah, he played around here, Strathaven, Penn State guy.
Right, exactly. So, they get these linebackers, and then they end up they haunt the Giants, they haunt the Eagles, they haunt the Washington football team for 10, 15 years. So, I feel like this Micah Parsons thing is a big deal for Dallas. And I look at the Jets, no one really cares for the Jets. I get it, but you look at what they did. They got obviously Zach Wilson, who who knows who he's gonna be. That they got Vera Tucker in the late first round, that guard that I know in the Giants chat we were hoping to try to get. They got Elijah Moore and Michael Carter, who's a running back out of North Carolina. So they got a lot of really strong offensive pieces to kind of wrap around Zach Wilson. They didn't really do much on the defensive side, which is kind of concerning, but at least they're giving him some resources that he might need to be successful. So,
and that defense was gritty, dude. That's it's funny, Zach. I'll say this because I didn't even write this in my notes. But it was something I thought about over the weekend. I thought, oh shoot, I want to talk about that on the show next week. And it just kind of came up now. Did you ever once? I mean, truly, ever during the draft coverage at all? Even the last 3 weeks, everyone go, I just still can't get over the Jets beating the Rams in that game. If they just don't beat them, and then they maybe just keep on losing, they're getting Trevor Lawrence, and now they're screwed it up, and they're only getting Zach Will. No one said that. Mm-hmm. That's all they were talking about during week 14 or 15 or whatever the hell that game was. I think it was 15 or 16. We're
yeah,
that pisses me off though. I don't know. I just
no. And a couple other teams that I think really did well. I think Pittsburgh isn't getting a lot of love, but I'm big on Najee Harris, and obviously the Steelers needed something in the running back room. They grab him, and I like the Pat Fryer move.
Oh, you're already licking your chops fantasy style, aren't you? On that the Najee Harris, aren't you?
I know. I might.
I know you over there.
You know how I operate. But and then the Chargers too. I mean, Slater kind of fell to them at 13, from an offensive lineman perspective. I know a lot of people had him going in the top 10 or top 11. And then they got Asante Samuel Jr. in the second round, which everyone was projecting him to be in the first round.
Well, it's funny too, because I had some notes I wanted to ask you on they're all reunion based. Oh, what do you think about Joe Burrow and him, Burrow and Chase? Do you want me to ask you those questions now, or Jamar Chase and then Joe Burrow going to reunite?
I was surprised they took receiver there. I really thought they were going to go offensive lineman. Why wouldn't you? You got to protect Burrow. It's good to have the flashy pieces. We've talked about this.
No, the Lions got him.
Mm-hmm.
It was such an amateur hour video, by the way, with them.
Oh, I know. They're all hyped up. Ooh, they're biting kneecaps.
They're so excited to not suck anymore, and I'm okay, why don't you work on actually not sucking instead of talking about not sucking?
Yeah, you gotta. It's easy to say. You gotta actually implement.
Well, and to that point, can I say something without? No, I'm going to say it and just hold back before you we stop becoming friends here for a second. The Giants would know that because you've gotten a few guys. You're this is it. This is the up, man, and it has not exactly happened. But I think last year was the first year you guys really. I told you this. I'm not saying I told you so. That week 17 game, I was dude, you need to win that game because you need to feel that team's going in a positive direction. They're playing meaningful football. Fuck, oh, wow. I was going to say the record, but see, there you go. That's my hype speech for you. That's one of my first cursing. This is what who would have thought that would have done it, not during the Aaron Rodgers thing. It would be me hyping you up about the Giants, but to that point. Anyway, there you go. There's an EK on that one. But anyway, so screw the record. That's what I was trying to say. You were playing meaningful football. I was trying to hype you up there for a second.
Oh, yeah.
But all that being said, so we can talk obviously the Giants draft for a second, which we'll get into. I kind of want to ask you just to kind of get the ball warmed up, though. Rolling down the hill. Clock goes to 11. Or I guess it was a 10. And it's Little Eagles, Cowboys flip-flopping. What's going through your mind at that point, Zach? I got to ask you.
Well, at first, I'm licking my chops because all along I was saying we're either taking Parsons or Devontae Smith at 11. I felt very confident that that's who we were going to take. And that's pretty much what it looked like we were going to get, either Parsons or Smith. It seems like we were going to take Smith based on what had happened, how we traded back. I had a lot of different things running through my head. I feel like it's, without me like cursing and going crazy.
No,
I think it's pretty sad. I think it's pretty sad that Dallas, being a divisional rival of obviously everyone in the division, but especially with the Eagles, I would say it's pretty sad that they're willing to swap picks with a division rival to give them probably who I think was the best receiver in the draft. For what, I don't know. I just don't think divisional rivals, and this isn't me being a salty Giants fan, I just don't think divisional rivals should be trading draft picks, especially in that situation in a draft. But whatever. Obviously I would have loved to have Devontae Smith. I think a lot of Eagles fans love that they got Devontae Smith, obviously, which they should be excited. But I also think when you look at their team, they have bigger needs that they need to fill besides that Devontae Smith role, in my opinion. Whatever. It's a great pick for them. Good addition. Okay. But when we traded back, after that trade and we traded back, and I saw that we got the Bears first round pick next year, that immediately wiped away any type of anger I had about that trade with Dallas and Philly, because I'm like, all right, great. I don't think the Bears are going to be that good next year. So maybe we'll have a top 15, top 12 pick next year on top of whatever we have, so my frustration was wiped right away. And then we got Kadarius Toney, who I knew a lot of, Peter Schrager was high on him being a low-key mid or late first round, really good wide receiver. And then I watched film on him, and it's everyone's amazing, right? But the way that he's just so hard to tackle. He's a gadget player. You can use him on an end around or some trick plays, and we've never really had that type of player. We did some end arounds with Evan Ingram, but
oh God, that's yeah.
So I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm very happy with how that trade affected what we did, because I think we got a lot of draft capital. We got some draft capital in this year's draft, and then we got some for next year's coming up that are going to be really beneficial. And I still really like the players we drafted. I like Toney a lot, Kadarius Toney a lot. So,
well, I think of it this way too, which is fun as a Giants fan. You look at, you're going on the upswing, so you should feel good about what you actually have, and then on top of that, it's so then we're not to say that way. Let's just say you're a wild card team this year, for fun, right?
Right.
Well, you got 2 firsts next year. That would either take you from being a wild card team to divisional winner, or maybe you're ahead of schedule. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, it's we can trade that pick. We can move around and do all sorts of different things. So, it gives you a lot of capital, which I think, you were saying, and that makes it very exciting if you're that fan. Dude, look at us with Jair Alexander. We traded back, and the next year we got Darnell Savage.
Exactly.
But that's fun.
Yeah, exactly. So, obviously the trade that Dallas and the Eagles made didn't really necessarily make me happy, but what we got because of that trade, what we got in return, I think we got a better deal than picking at 11. So,
well, it's crazy too, because you think about the Eagles, kind of not throwing that last game, but all that. Not saying it's funny because that's the thing. Actually, let me ask you that. I won't say it. I'll pick your brain on it. I feel that's the general tone on Twitter, especially in the southeastern Pennsylvania region, if you will, where everyone's the Eagles, did the whole thing on week 17, and then they got Devontae Smith and the Giants. They just owned them in every sense. As a Giants fan, I'd love to hear what you had to say about that.
You need to have an offensive line to be able to get the ball to Devontae Smith.
Well, that's actually thank you. You actually just cleared my name. I didn't have to talk anymore. That was actually my feedback on the Eagles, was just, if this doesn't work, then at what point does Howard Roseman have to get held accountable for not being able to orchestrate an offensive line? But that being said, I could be wrong on that, right? It took Diller, right? They did draft some linemen this year, and I don't know, but I don't know. And all the while, it's what about Washington? A team like that, it's what are they doing?
They didn't do anything super spectacular, at least.
But what's that mean? I guess that's not to try to call you out, but I'm what does that mean? Because even from all of our perspectives, what's spectacular mean? Because you were the one telling me last year, I'm just everyone was saying the Packers had a very mundane draft, and I'm just dude, what are we doing drafting a running back in the second round? It's our third string running back, and you're no, dude, hear me out. He's going to be good. In a year or two, you're going to thank me. That's the draft, and that's actually one of the notes I had in the draft. Is you want to talk so badly about it, but I feel it's no different than when you were in science class as a kid, and they're all right, we're going to plant the seed and watch the plant grow out of the thing. And it's well, it'll take 3 weeks, but eventually they'll start seeing things growing out of the soil, and that's the draft, in my opinion. Everyone wants the instant gratification lottery ticket, but But that's that point. Let me expand the wrap this back to the Giants. Did you have weapons? There's a few teams I wrote down. I was like, you guys and the Dolphins, I thought, are very synonymous because you're in that spot where, and no offense, you haven't made the playoffs in a few years.
Yeah,
but you're on that upswing and you were like all over that, like you're sniffing that picture, like just like right. So I don't know how to act it out, but to that point, I don't know, like I was sitting there watching because I know they like people forget you got John Ross this year. Like that's a fun name now because of all the weapons you have. Not always about weapons. What's your line going to do? You can have as many weapons as you want, but it's funny. A weapon is what you have in your holster, but the offensive line would almost be like the referee saying, okay, well, you guys pull up your guns at the same time, or like if you had the same offensive line, but if someone had a better offensive line, it's like, okay, you can pull it out a second faster. It's like that's all it is at the end of the day. But to that point, what do you think of you guys getting a lot of weapons in the Dolphins as I ramble on there?
Well, I want to Joe P asked in the chat if I think Tony was a reach at 20. And, it's funny. So at that time, I was thinking like the best receivers on the board at that time, in my opinion, it was between Tony and Rashad Bateman, who at the time I wanted Bateman over Tony. But then when we got Tony and I did a little bit more, watching some film, and his stats don't necessarily like light you off, like really get you going. But keep in mind that offense also had Kyle Pitts, some other weapons as well. So it wasn't just him running that offense. And then I watch the film and I see how tough he runs. I see how fast he is. I see the gadget plays that our offense never really could do. And now hopefully we can, that we have this type of player, like kind of like a Percy Harvin-ish type of player, not to compare him, but like that's just what I see as far as what you can do with him, I don't think it was a reach in that regard because I think it gives our offense something we haven't had in a very long time. So, no, I don't think it was a reach. But, yeah, and the Dolphins – to the Dolphins, though, going through who they picked, I agree. I think they did a really good job. I think they've done a very nice job with the draft the last couple of years. They got Jalen Phillips, who was one of the best edge prospects, apparently, supposedly in this draft. So that's good for their defense. It's already kind of on the upswing, and they add a piece like him is really helpful. So,
and I guess to add in there. So I know, and it's fun too because
Waddle too, obviously, but
and the reason why, and the reason why I branched both of those two teams together is because there's no more. Not that I'm saying there were a lot of them, but there's no excuses for Daniel Jones. There's no excuses for Tua, right? Like to like throw the ball. It's like, all right, look, like the weapons are all there, like more than enough. So
we got Will Fuller, Parker, and now Waddle. Yeah, so
it's a lot of weapons.
He's got the big body.
For DJ though, you got Slayton, you got Kenny Galladay, and then you start. And John Ross, you got Evan Ingram, like you have a lot of weapons. Saquon Barkley, like
Kyle Rudolph.
Yeah,
big body target, yeah.
Right. So, and that's not even talking about your class. So that's why I think is interesting about both of you guys that you were on the doorstep of making the playoffs. Like you were in that shadow, like you're in week 17 talking about, well, if this happens, you'll make the playoffs, right? Like, and it didn't shake out that way. But at the same point, now you've reloaded. Like now, you know what I mean? Like now it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's no excuse. There's no excuse for Daniel Jones now. So, we'll see. But I want to talk about Azeez Ojulari, our second round pick, the edge linebacker, or whatever we want to call it, from Georgia. He had eight and a half sacks last year, which was kind of under the radar, I thought, from him. Tied for 8th in the whole NCAA football. First place was only 10.5. He was only 2 sacks behind first place, which we haven't really had that dominated. We had Leonard Williams, obviously. Okay, he had double-digit sacks last year, but we haven't had a consistent pass rush in quite some time. So hopefully Leonard can do what he did last year, but I think adding Ojulari at the edge, who knows if he'll start or not, but adding that type of threat who can rush the passer consistently would be huge for us too. So I don't know. I think we did a good job. And like I said, just like we said earlier, building the capital for next year's draft is what really gets me excited too.
Well, and to that point, I think it's always interesting. I think the teams that draft the best are the ones where they didn't need that position. I'm like, that's all the more reason to draft that position because that guy's going to get dropped in the mix of a bunch of good players. Like, what better thing? It's almost like it's the whole whipping in the fire type thing, right? Like, so baptism by fire. So, I don't know. It's funny. What was the other thing? There was one other thing I was going to throw out there at you. It just went in my head.
Well, how do you feel about the Packers draft? Were you happy with how they drafted?
Man, dude, I mean, it's so hard. It's literally like the plane's going down and someone's like, how was your meal? And I'm like, I think it's good. Like, as long as I get sick on the airline food, like, that's all I want is I'll go off on my vacation. But if the plane crashes, like, the vacation is ruined either way. So it doesn't really matter. Like, and that sounds horrible, but like, right, that's where I'm at. But to actually be an adult and answer the question, no, I love Eric Stokes in the first round. I love Aaron Rodgers. I'm trading up 7 picks to get him in the third round, right? Like, Ellen Meyer is the center from Ohio State. That's basically the Corey Linsley replacement.
Mm-hmm.
I like what they're doing. It's just, I don't know who's
just the other things. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's just the other things is what it is. Yeah, exactly. Speaking of just the other things and just the other things that my quarterback was actually attending, that also was another thing that I wasn't fully paying attention to. Kentucky Derby, Zach. What'd you think? You're a horse racing guy.
I missed it. I turned on TV. It was like 5 minutes after the race was over. Didn't bet on it. Nothing. I wasn't in tune with the horse vibes this year.
It's because of the Aaron Rodgers drama, isn't it? Tell me. I understand.
Yeah,
I totally get it.
I'm preoccupied with the Aaron Rodgers drama.
No, but was it Medina Spirit was the winner?
She was 12-1, so it was a good payout. And second place, I think, was 26-1, and I think third was like an 8-1 horse or 5-1. So there were some pretty hefty payouts if you took those horses.
Yeah. Would you do you know anything about this horse? Like, I'm actually asking you because that's the point. I didn't care either. I don't know if it was COVID or what.
I just know Medina was it was Bob Baffert. I think he set the record for most Kentucky Derby wins as a trainer. And
so done with him. He's the devil.
Yeah, and the jockey was John Velasquez. It wasn't Mike Smith, believe it or not, but John Velasquez, who he's been around forever. I'm sure he's a Hall of Famer. If not, he will be. So, yeah, I mean, what else do you expect? Bob Baffert and another veteran jockey. So, good for them.
He's the Bill Belichick of horse racing, I feel like.
He is, or the Nick Saban even, like one of those. Like
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I hate when it's like, oh, he wasn't the favorite. I'm like, well, come on.
The favorite doesn't always win. Like, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like what do you put in like, well, I was about to say the whole Peaky Blinders thing, but I was watching, like, do you remember the horse racing season? And they're putting cocaine up the horse's nose. I'm like, was that what Bob Baffert's doing? I mean, it makes sense why his horse always wins. I mean, Jesus,
right.
God, I don't know. Also, we'll get, let's do happy things. Mojo Monday?
Yeah, let's do Mojo Monday.
All right, let's do a little Mojo Monday. Let's get, I was about to start singing. Get the Jackson opening up. Yeah, you want to go first, though?
Yeah, let's do some UFC. So this past weekend, they had a little fight late on Saturday night. It was a light heavyweight match between Dominic Reyes and Jiří Procházka, who's from he's a Czech Republican fighter. So Dominic Reyes, so Dominic Reyes is coming off of 2 straight defeats, and I believe they were both in title fights. I know one was. And he was this fight was kind of for him, he was the favorite, and he was kind of looking to kind of get back in the swing of things and try to get another title shot. Not so fast, my friend, as Lee Corso would say. Procházka, like, I didn't want to do the video because it was like it was a nasty, like, they were fighting, and he did like a spinning elbow, and it hit him right like in the face, and it knocked Reyes like flat out. Like, it was not pretty from his end. Not as bad as Sonny Conte's knockout against Waldo, but it was a pretty devastating knockout, especially with an elbow. And every UFC analyst is already calling for this dude to have a title shot at light heavyweight, and he's only fought in the UFC twice. But his professional record, he's like 28-3-1. Like, he's a very good fighter. Long story short, he just came in and basically, like, the number one contender, just knocked him out with ease. So my Mojo Monday goes out to Jiří Procházka.
Dude, my mojo should just be you pronouncing that. No, but you're right. It's one of those things. I always love it as a UFC guy, like looking, well, not as a UFC guy, like not anti, but you know what I mean, like not knowing anything about it, and like looking at my phone on Sunday morning on Twitter, and then just like seeing the videos. I'm like, oh my god.
I know.
All right, but I'll spin it back. So for my Mojo Monday, another guy's in the trenches, like a UFC fighter, Cole Van Lanen, hometown guy. 15 minutes away from Lambeau Field, Zach gets the call, drafted by the Packers. I mean, it's pretty cool. Like, that you think spam likely comes up and it ends up being the Packers front office asking if you want to get drafted, right? Like, I mean, it's just such an incredible, I mean, it's just that's so cool. And there's my little happiness in all this, that was my positivity. But
there you go.
I mean, but no, and I think, right, in general, let me backtrack a little bit, right? There's so many different people, I feel like, during the draft, right, where they got drafted by their hometown team, they got drafted by their favorite team, right? Like, there's all those different, like, there was a thing with Carolina where the long snapper thought it was a joke when he got, like all those little things. I think they're always great mojo. But draft grades don't matter. I'm like, yeah, but, celebrate these things. This is always great when people, love a good draft. These things. This is always great when people, love a good draft story and all the videos and stuff that go viral.
Like for kids and stuff, that, hey, it can happen. You can get drafted by, your hometown team that you always dream about playing for. So it's nice to see those stories.
It's the quote, more than a game or whatever that everyone says.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so it's that point, it's more than a follow that we would love, right? So, it's that point. Let's, we'll throw it out there. Oh, man, I haven't ran through this in a minute. iTunes and Spotify for all the audio episodes. You want to check us out on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, @_GetSideTracked. And make sure you check us out on the website, www.get-sidetracked.com. And I'll tell you what, I'm not going to hide away from the Aaron Rodgers bad news. I'm not going to hide away from the SideTracked bad news. We lost 3 followers, Zach, over a little hiatus.
Did we?
Well, yeah, it's not good. We're better than that. But that being said, let's up and help us out there. You can follow us to the Hearts of Love, subscribe to the right. It's free with Amazon Prime. If you want to check out everything on SideTracked on Twitch. And if you want to go on YouTube, and maybe that's more your speed, you can subscribe there as well for highlights, interviews, all sorts of cool stuff. And if you want to swing for the cycle, go for it on the store. We have all sorts of cool gear and all sorts of fun stuff on the site. So that being said, we did good, Zach. I wanted to hear from Chad with a live report, and I have more with that, but I actually think it's funny because I had notes like, on Thursday, we'll talk about this.